there are, now we go to the Lifetime Achievement Awards. Now, one of the things, the difficulties we had this year is, but it was very important for us to make to publicly acknowledge these scholars is these awards, the Lifetime Achievement Awards, as we say, with us, it's been people where, when they see the laureates of our awards, people are very shocked. If you look, for instance, at the Guillain Award, they include people like Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Wilson Harris. I mean, in other words, we're not messing around. But the thing is, this year, in our list are some people who are too elderly to travel. So what we've decided to do is we're going to have ceremonies. We're going to go to them and hand it to them locally, and that's why they're not here. But I'll just mention their names, and then we'll get to the Lifetime Achievement winner who is here, because sometimes we have, young whippersnappers, these young people in their 60s and 70s, you know what I mean? But so, in terms of the Guillain, I just want to mention the name so you can know. The Guillain winner for Lifetime this year is George Lamming, and we're going to go to Barbados to hand it to him. And in the States, due to illness and a variety of things, but it's Chip, or I know him as Chip because he's a friend of mine, but Samuel Delaney, the famous science fiction writer and queer theorist. So we're going to have something. Perhaps in his case, when we meet at UConn, he'll be able to take the Amtrak up, and we've done that before, where we do it afterward. But in addition to that, we also have a scholar who's in Cuba who wasn't able to travel at all because while he was traveling elsewhere, his particulars were taken. So he's waiting to try to get off his ID. But we'll let you know, it's Victor Fowler Calzada. Now, in terms of the Fanon Award, and one of the things we look for Fanon Award winners is that Fanon Award Lifetime Achievement winners exemplify what Fanon was about. And one of the things some of you may hear me talk about, particularly in my work on Fanon, is we fight against the tendency, the effort to de-intellectualize Fanon. We know Fanon was a revolutionary. We know he was a political activist, but he was a major intellectual. So when we choose Lifetime Achievement Awards, we're giving them to people who are able to bring those worlds together. You can't separate Fanon the intellectual from Fanon the activist, or Fanon the activist from Fanon the intellectual. They're one, they're symbiotic. Well, a septuagint, but not even septo, she's center. Grace Lee Boggs is, this year we have 2 Lifetime Achievement Award winners. This year Grace Lee Boggs is 100 years old. She can barely move, and we're going to go to Detroit to hand it to her. So she's the first winner. And many of you, if you don't know Grace Lee Boggs is, you should. Grace Lee Boggs, as we put it here, is, I'll just read it out so you could get a sense. She's a giant, sorry about that. Grace Lee Boggs is a giant in Afro-Caribbean, Chinese, and Marxist thought. She's an internationally known Chinese-American scholar. Many of you may not know, she wrote her dissertation on Hegel. She is one of these people who fought tirelessly in Detroit for questions that bring communities together. And even now, at 100, she is continuing to wage that fight. So we're going to go to Detroit to give it to her. However, in addition, we're now going to talk about a very young man who thought he was an old man. But of course, the thing about young men and young women who are born old is that they actually age backwards. And that's because I'm sure, one of the things is people like this are so busy doing the work they need to do. And that work involves this other element that is not from within our framework of community, is a true example of non-arrogance. Why? Because they're so busy focusing on others that they often forget. They don't even expect to receive anything. Now, the recipient who is present of the Lifetime Achievement Award, the Frantz Fanon Lifetime Achievement Award, received the unanimous vote. Actually, all of them did. And one of the things I could say about him is that this is a man who faced many crossroads in his life in which he could have taken the easy way out. Like Fanon, who could have taken the easy way out and be a petit bourgeois psychiatrist, he could have gone to Martinique or to Paris or just hang out, or he could have gone to Montreal and just sit there and lead a comfortable life. This recipient, when he went through the horrors of the apartheid state in South Africa, a state whose very existence was about the dehumanization of him, the communities to which he belonged, and part of a whole nexus of an investment in saying indigenous, black, brown, all the people exemplified by many of us in the room, including whites who identify with the struggles against the racist state, that all those people should be eliminated, dehumanized, forced into submission. He went through the horrors of that state. I've had conversations with him where he even talks about, to this day, his nightmares of what Frantz Fanon would talk about in his writings, of being chased, of having to flee, what it is to deal with the very trauma of that kind of society. But he's different from many others because you see a lot of people who, as Fanon pointed out, would fight against the colonial state, against the racist state. Some simply want to take the place of the oppressors, which means they aim to become oppressors themselves. However, there are others who have taken the position that there's a greater project that would involve transcending those issues, which means one sees pedagogically the struggle as one of articulating the kind of love about which I spoke when I spoke about Frederick Douglass's mother. So this is an individual who, when he had an opportunity, when he came to study philosophy in the States for his master's, he went to, because it was the apartheid state, the black universities in South Africa. He could have stayed here and just decided to do the proverbial middle finger up and not return. But he made a decision to go back into that degrading situation, that state, because of his profound love for the people there. His background from Botswana did not make him a stranger for the degradation. Like Fanon, he said, where there's injustice, he will be there. And in the midst of that, he goes back, and at first he was actually working his doctorate at the University of Cape Town, but he realized that when he walked into that institution, they did not see a human being. And it's not only him, there are others who have gone through this. I had a conversation with Cornel West, where he said his first day of class in graduate school at Princeton, a white professor walked in, looked at him in philosophy of language class, and told Cornel West, this is a class for rational beings. And Cornel just looked at him. He said, it's a class for rational beings. Cornel looked at him. So the guy, frustrated, said, well, we have to do presentations. Who's going to do a presentation on Frege's Sense and Reference? And Cornel's hand went up. I will. Because Cornel already read that. He knew that. But the South African state that this individual was in was such that there was almost no room. When he went to his first Philosophical Association meeting, so he left the University of Cape Town. When he went to his first Philosophical Association meeting, he said he was not a human being there. But you see, the error that many of us make is to say, why don't they recognize me? If he had made that mistake, he wouldn't be here today. Because he responded the way we respond to this issue. He understood that the real issue is to make them irrelevant. He had work to do. And so he went to the black townships, he went to the coast, and he studied people like Fanon, Biko, he wrote his articles, and became the premier scholar not only on black consciousness, the thought of Biko, but also the premier scholar on Frantz Fanon in South Africa, and also on Ubuntu. He began to teach others and build bridges. He built bridges with the Black Committee on Blacks in Philosophy in the United States. He built bridges And here's the point, not only with black scholars, he cultivated the development of young white scholars in South Africa who are committed to fight against the racist state. I've met those scholars. He also understood that this issue is an issue to understand humanity in our complexity, our profound difference, and our understanding. And in fact, he mentored black women in philosophy in the country. He mentored anybody who could understand that there's a greater cause than themselves. And so it's for his selflessness and for his ongoing contribution to those ideas that I now call Mabogo Percy More up to receive the Lifetime Achievement Frantz Fanon Award.
Oh, I'm overwhelmed. And if I become incoherent, it's because of, the overwhelming responses that I'm experiencing here, which I think I would have never even gotten at home. And I'm so grateful for that. And in our language, we say, in fact, there is a philosophy in South Africa, we say, umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, which means a person is a person through other people. And translated, it also means I am because we are. And for that reason, my being here is dependent on the people who have been with me throughout my life, throughout the 40 years of my teaching, throughout, all the times that I've been. It is to those people that this particular award belongs. And because of that, I want to thank quite a lot of people. I wouldn't have been here had it not been, because I am because we are. And I'm made by people, so that the award is not mine, is an award for people. And I want to at least acknowledge some people. I want to say a big thank you, and I feel so honored. A big thank you to the CPA for finding it worthy for me to be given this award. I really appreciate that. I also want to thank, I've been a member of the CPA since its inception in 2004, and throughout those years, I've become part of the family which I couldn't have been in South Africa. I was a member of the South African Philosophical Society, but only for 2 years, and I had to leave because I was not recognized as a philosopher, but as a representative of what blackness is. So I built some friendships with people in the CPA, and for that I'm so much grateful. Without them, without people like Louis, without people like Jane, without people like Charles Mills, without people like Paget, without people, I wouldn't have been here, because their work inspired me in such a way that without their inspiration and encouragement, I wouldn't have been here. So to them, I say thank you. But I want to say a special thank to what I said to Louis, my crew. I want to say thank you to my nephew who's there, found it very, necessary for him to accompany me so that he can be witness to all this. I want to say thank you to my stepdaughter who's sitting there, because she's writing an exam. She got a supplement. When we get back home, on that very day she's writing an exam, but she felt she has to come here in order to be witness to this, despite the fact that she's writing an exam the same day. So I would say thank you very much for that. There are two special people who have been with me, and I'm sure most of the members of the association know them. They've been traveling with me. We moved from South Africa to the Caribbean. It's about 16,000 kilometers. And to come here, it took us about 24 hours of traveling. So it's been a long road. They've been constantly being my, keeping me company, coming with me to some of the meetings that we've had in Barbados, in Jamaica, in Trinidad. They've been tagging along with me. And for that, I'm grateful. And I want to say thank you to my partner, Nombulelo Nomvete. She's sitting there. And I want to say thanks, a very big thanks to my daughter, who's just being one of my partner in coming to these. And to them, I say thank you. And I want to thank everybody for being around. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
As is tradition, I now ask all the now laureates to stand. So the audience can now formally acknowledge you, our 2015 recipients.